Hi, it's Jen Healy. I'm coming back with a recap of day 4 for the Date with Destiny 2018 happening here in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I wanted to do this video while I was fresh because last night we went until about 3 a.m. I like to usually share the information while it's fresh, but I totally conked out. So yeah, I wanted to take a night of rest before I posted this video and really reflect on all of the beautiful teachings that are coming through. So yesterday was mainly focused on relationships. And in every relationship is a relationship. And relationships come in different forms, but there was an emphasis on life partner, romantic relationship, coupling between male and female energies. And the masculine and feminine can come in any form. There can be a female who's more masculine or a male who's more feminine, but he was talking a lot about polarity and how when two energies come together, they're not actually the same. They want to be complementary in order for there to be energy, for there to be a charge. And this whole week, all the teachings are building on themselves. They're accumulating. And we talked a lot about state and meaning, because these are things we actually can change. So we can shift and upgrade our perspective, and we can change the way we're approaching our relationships so that they can be operating at a higher level. So there is a way to shift state and to shift perspective and to shift meaning. And so we went into state being physical, the body, the mind, emotions, and then meaning. And meaning is what we assign to a particular belief system. So we are really digging in and uncovering our belief system and our values and our rules, particularly the rules around relationships. We went into the rules of life yesterday, and to even look at maybe our values or our needs are different in work and for ourselves than they are in relationships. And that is usually something that's learned, or we inherited that from our relatives, the primary caregivers in our lives. And this is all really, really important to take the time to look at and really be honest, because that's the only way we can really upgrade, is if we're really honest with ourselves. And taking full responsibility. I really love this idea and concept that Tony Robbins brings, like every single person taking full responsibility for what they're experiencing, the people that they're attracting into their lives or the people that they're choosing. That way we can make a different choice and really see the underlying pattern underneath it. And I really appreciate that reminder and permission to take full responsibility as a must, not a should, but a must, in order to have the kind of passionate and fulfilling and harmonious, healthy relationships that are here to fulfill us. So let's get into it a little. I'm going to look at my notes to make sure that I cover everything. So changing state and changing meaning, I think this is one of the most important things to look at, because there can be, like any relationship, as it evolves, the person that we bring to it at the beginning of a relationship is different 6 months out or 12 months out or 18 months out. So that's why relationships tend to fizzle, or we have a story of incompatibility as we get to know each other. So that's really common. And he talks about the stressors, the main stressors of relationship, and I'm going to kind of jump around. So the main stressors are lack of attraction, and lack of attraction is usually from lack of polarity or lack of intimacy. And he goes into a lot of detail about when relationships depolarize, when both people are acting feminine or both people are acting masculine, that it just doesn't work, that there needs to be, I call it a dynamic tension, but there's like a complementary energy to the relationship. And it's really common, particularly with today's societal conditioning, for women to become more masculine and then for men to become more feminine. And then it's like a mask that is being worn because it's not the true essence or the core of the being. And these have been learned, and so they can be unlearned, but they need to be identified first. And these apply for every relationship. I know for me, he talks about the, let me peek real quick right here so I get this correct for you guys. So he talks about, like I was saying, the lack of intimacy and what shuts down intimacy. And for women, there are some particular patterns that happen here. When a woman feels unseen or misunderstood, not understood, he calls it the 3 U's, or unsafe, then there is a contraction or there's a closing down in the field. And for men, it's being criticized, he calls it the 3 C's, controlled, or closed down. So when a woman feels unsafe or unseen, then there's a natural tendency to either criticize or close down or control, and then that shuts down the masculine. And so you can see, I really believe that there is like an inherent dysfunction in relationships, and like the system that we created is really defective, and he goes into why that's defective. And so if a woman is becoming controlling, then she's trying to use her masculine to get safety in the world, and it just doesn't work. And the same, like a guy is the masculine in general, not just men, it could be 2 women or 2 men together. The masculine in general is seeking freedom. And so when there's a control, if there's a feeling of unsafety and then a need and a desire to control, then the masculine goes out of balance and is seeking freedom. So all these strategies just don't work, and they're so common, pervasive, even insidious in relationships. So I have known and believed for years that relationships are inherently flawed, particularly the dynamics between the male and the female. Okay, that could be the masculine and feminine. They're just inherently incompatible when they're playing out these disintegrated or stressed roles. And I think that's really important to acknowledge. But then he talks about, which there is hope, the 3 dimensions of relationships. And the reason why I have personally experienced relationships as not working and dysfunctional is because the first dimension, which most people are operating at, is it's all about the self. So it's all about me, or it's all about that other person just getting their needs met, focusing on themselves. It's a me, me, me. It's kind of like how children are raised, right? Children are raised to make it all about them. They're not concerned about how everybody else is feeling, or is everybody else getting what they need. So as children, that's like a first stage of development, or like the baby love. He talks about this in many different layers that we went through throughout the week. So I'm pulling those together. The second dimension is what he calls equality love. And this equanimity love is actually bartering or trading. And for me, the most evolved relationships I've seen is moving from it's all about the self to, okay, well, let's at least create a system of equality. And it honestly doesn't work. And I've seen it not work. And I've never really evolved myself to the third dimension of relationship and seen an example of that. So we'll get into it. The second dimension is all about, well, you do this for me and I do this for you, and we both take care of each other, and then we call that love. Okay? But it's mainly based on like focusing on each person meeting their needs, and then it becomes like a transaction or exchange. And this is actually an upgrade from the one-dimensionality. It's really common, for example, in relationships, women have been taught to like give and give and give and give, and the men to just focus on themselves or focus on work or focus on something outside of the relationship. That was like the old paradigm. The new paradigm, which has happened since the 70s, where women have been like, no, it's all about equality. We want to be treated like equals and that kind of thing. So relationships have evolved, but that still doesn't work because it's called unconditional love, right? That's the concept. Well, let's make it into a reality by bringing in new ways of interacting, new systems and new models. So the 3-dimensional love is giving unconditionally. It is your needs are as important as my needs. And when both people are giving fully in, showing up, stepping in, then both people are taking care of one another, but it's not a transaction. It's not an exchange. There's no like keeping score or measuring like I did this for you, so you do this for me. And this is kind of like the more universal unconditional love that I feel like we're all really seeking and striving for, but still operating in the 2D or like the flat relationship reality. So I like this, even using it to describe like the earth, right? the 2D reality being flat, and relationships have felt pretty flat to me, because ultimately we don't give equally, or we don't give evenly. We have different skill sets. We have different qualities that we're bringing to the relationship. And so allowing each person who at their core has a dominance, predominance towards masculine and feminine, and letting those two energies match up, taking off those masks, those learned behaviors. And he talks a lot about how men have learned to put on a feminine mask, particularly if they've been raised by a single mom, and then they're trying to put a masculine mask on top of the feminine mask, on top of the core masculine that is the self, and it doesn't come through as authentic, or it just doesn't work. So we're relearning and reprogramming, upgrading our software so we can really show up in relationships in an authentic way. And it's such a big topic. I mean, there's so many experts on relationships. I'm not one of them. I can guarantee that. I'm still working on myself for sure, and knowing that relationships haven't been the ultimate support and love and inspiration and all of those things. They tend to come with a lot of difficulties and a lot of challenges. And when we can embrace, and this was like the little nugget that I shared yesterday, if we can, the only problem is that we see problems as problems. That's the problem. And I love that expression. The problem is that we see problems as problems instead of as opportunities, and rising to meet the challenges. So every fear is an opportunity. Every problem is an opportunity for us to grow. And we usually like to discount it as like, oh, we're incompatible, or there's a lack of attraction, or there's a lack of overall emotional states that are of the lower vibration. Like if some problem comes up, instead of joyously or eagerly working through it to see, what is this showing? How is this reflecting a part of me that wants to grow to the next level, and seeing relationships as the ultimate opportunity for spiritual growth and development and personal care, as well as this opportunity to give and love one another and see each person in their beauty and innocence. We usually go to these lower vibrations of frustration or irritation or resentment. He talks about the 4 R's, and that is, we bring resistance into the relationship, resentment, rejection, and then repression. If you guys do stay together, then it becomes kind of like one of those flat, dead relationships where it's just about coexisting instead of really thriving and fulfilling and having that ultimate satisfaction that comes from that kind of love. So yeah, I'm still working on myself. I know that I haven't experienced that ultimate love. I've experienced beautiful love and beautiful relationships that were not long lasting because of these patterns that come up. And because I was going with the model, the best model that I had seen of like relationships being like a transaction or a bartering system, ultimately they didn't work, right? So I'm making that commitment to be fully responsible for myself, to show up in a relationship fully giving and being able and willing to receive the other person instead of it being a transaction, just appreciating and coming into that vibration of looking for the things that are working, allowing the things that are challenges to come up as opportunities for growth, and to move into a greater position of health and harmony and happiness within relationships while embracing the fears. It's big work. I know this has been a lot. So state and meaning, those are the 2 big takeaways for me. Being able to change our perspective, change our state, look at our belief systems, understanding what values and what rules are governing our relationships, and being willing to shift them if they're not really serving the highest and best vision of what is possible. Thank you so much for listening. You can find out more about me at zenhealing.com. It's spelled Zenhealyng. There's no I, it's a Y-N-G in healing. And then transformationaltraining.online is one of my courses that you can also check out. I will be back tomorrow, or later on today, I guess, with day 5, and I look forward to sharing more. Thank you.